Welcome back to Rookie Me Central's AFL Draft Night coverage. I'm Peter Williams, joined by Grace McRae again, and we're going to be throwing to the draft room as we count down or we go through the last 10 picks of the first round tonight. So, obviously, the first up straight out of the bank after we went through the first 10 just recently, we had St Kilda with pick 11 and they went Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira. Obviously, very skillful player, one of the best kicks in the draft, high upside. He's an outside type, but certainly once he's able to build that sort of strength and compete more, he has had that senior level, but someone who can really have an impact going forward. Guys, wasn't too much of a surprise, I should say, but what do you sort of think?
I think you should be sitting in here with us, Pete. Very good. No, obviously, as you said, no real surprise. I thought, that's what we had there at that pick with the Saints. So suits their needs as well. Adds a little bit of class, sort of on the outside of midfield there. As Pete said there, uses the ball beautifully. I think one thing that really made him stand above some of his peers, Ed, was that in each high-level game he played, he was pretty much best of field or looked one of the most classy of field as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of been his thing pretty much all year, is just his class. It just stands out like really well. The way he not only kicks the ball, but just picks the right option. He's never rushed. He is clean and classy. He works hard both ways as well. So, I mean, Saints will be wanting to play him early, and I can see why. I mean, even though he's rather light-bodied, he'd be a very exciting talent for years to come. I mean, he's exactly what the Saints would be after.
Yep. He's the boy with the dancing feet, Pete and Grace.
Port Adelaide traded up for Josh Sinn with pick 12.
Yeah, certainly. We did sort of predict that he'd end up there. We knew the Bombers were keen, and I reckon Port knew that somehow. So they've traded up to get that selection, and they're able to bring him in, able to play off half-back and wing, and, be able to really impact with his penetrative boot. He's got a few things to work on, but we had him in the office, and you'll be able to see the interview soon via our YouTube and other socials, so be sure to check out that. But, yeah, Josh Sinn, really exciting player, and he was keen to go into state. I know he spoke to Michael during the week. So, Michael, he did kind of suggest he might be there, but what do you sort of make of the selection?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a pretty shrewd bit of business from Port Adelaide there, and did have a little bit of an inkling that he might end up there, but I think Josh was, just keen to go anywhere, really. I think he was also set that he was going to go into state, so whether that was Port or Brisbane just a little bit down the line, who Port snuck ahead of, he's a great pick. I mean, a really damaging type, run and gun, penetrating kick. It's got great speed, Declan, as well. We saw him a lot this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we were there for sort of his first few games in the midfield where, he had some really impressive moments. So I think that Dandenong game that we were both at was probably one of his standout games where he showed that he could win it on the inside as well, not just the outside, and, become a really dangerous stoppage player and even go forward to rest if he has to.
Yeah, I think, with his collection of traits, he could be one of the top 10 sort of players in this draft crop. He was unanimously regarded as a potential top one coming into the year, and yeah, could end up there, when all is said and done and he's had a long AFL career.
Pick 13, Essendon have selected Ben Hobbs from the Rebels.
Yeah, inside midfielder, the clear, standout pure inside midfielder of the draft. He slid a bit. It was sort of touted that he might. He seemed too good to slide this far, but Essendon have ended up getting him. He's able to slot straight in. He's a round one ready player if they really wanted him to. So he can come in. He adds that defensive pressure, that extra, fierce, competitive nature. One of the hardest of the ball you'll see. It's a good pick for Essendon in terms of getting a slider. I'll throw to Ed, given he's the Essendon supporter in the room. Ed, what do you think about the Bombers picking up Hobbs?
Yeah, I think it was a no-nonsense type of player for them. I mean, the contested side was something that they really wanted to work on this year. I mean, they were rated fairly low compared to the other clubs. But Ben Hobbs, I mean, you don't get much more contested than Hobbs. I mean, he's as tough as they come. He works hard. He's a hard runner. He worked on his outside game as well this year, showing that he had the ability to do so. So, I mean, he was always going to be in the conversation there if he slid that far. I mean, personally, I have him at number 5 in my rankings, and I mean, getting him that far at 13, I mean, Adrian Dodora and his team would have just been licking their lips.
Yeah, I mean, how do you pass up Ben Hobbs there? pretty much second to none for contested ball in this year's draft. Maybe Jason Horne-Francis would give him a run. But other than that, this kid can win a ball against anyone. I think he plays very, very early. Probably not the point of difference that Essendon would have been looking for in midfield, but he's just that good. So, yeah, great pick.
West Coast Eagles with pick 14, Campbell Chesser from the Sandringham Dragons.
Yeah, he's another player we had chatting during the week, and he did mention they had some interest late, but I'm not sure he thought he was going to go there necessarily. There were a lot of clubs interested in him. I know if he'd lasted much longer, he wouldn't have been on the board very long. You know, he had Brisbane and a couple of others that were sniffing around in the early 20s. So West Coast had to go and pull the trigger, and they did. So, look, he's a country boy, so he's able to easily move away from home. Obviously, he boarded, and that's why he represented big country. But he's got that skills on the outside. He's able to move along a wing, could play off half back. So he's sort of got that outside class. And, West Coast have got that older sort of midfield. He's able to come through and really add some more dimensions to it. They've been trying to add a bit more youth to their list, and they've certainly been able to do that. So, guys, what do you think about Campbell Chesser coming to the Eagles?
Yeah, another one where we sort of had a little bit of an inkling that there was that late interest from West Coast, and they got their man. So bringing in a bit of local talent, and then Campbell Chesser, who's one who was also resigned, I guess, to moving. He said that, there's no team in Albury where he's from, and so he knew he was going to be away from home. He's lived away from home for 4 years, boarding at Melbourne Grammar too. So, he's going to get used to it. It's a whole new world over there in WA. And he'll have to wait a little while to get over there, given the restrictions at the moment. But I'm sure he's going to have an absolute blast over there. A great player who will just rejuvenate that midfield a little bit. Bit of run and carry. And he has the size and scope and athleticism to sort of potentially be an inside player as well, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, he was one who really impressed at the start of the year. I mean, he got injured at a bad time, but his first game against Oakley, he was definitely in the top 3 players on the ground, playing mostly on the wing or as an outside midfielder. I mean, he's clean, he's classy, he's athletic, so he's got so many things going for him, and the work rate as well. I mean, Eagles have a really good one there that they could play in either type of role that they want to. But I could still see him, even if he's going to have a limited preseason because he's got to try and get up there. But I feel he can play some AFL football next year if his body holds up.
Pick 15, GWS have selected Leek Alir.
Yeah, the Central District product. We did sort of suggest in the top 10, after the top 10 reactions video, we wondered if there would be a bolter in the first round, and we've got it here with the Giants selecting Leek Alir. Some sort of touted him as maybe top 30 into that second round. I don't think many thought he might go into the first. Obviously didn't get a draft combine invite, but he's clearly impressed so much with his rate of development. Jumped 107 centimetres, running vertical leap at the South Australian Combine. He's got, so much upside and belief. He's got a lot to work on. He's still raw talent. He's that sort of overage talent as well. So he did get the draft combine invite though. So there has been clubs quite interested in him throughout the season. Obviously ending up at the Giants, so they give it another tall back there. Declan, being the Giants supporter, what do you think about this selection?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of aging tools in our defensive half, so it makes sense from a list need point of view. And I think that the athleticism that Leek has shown throughout the year is really impressive. And look, some might consider this a bolter, but I think it's a very GWS pick. We've shown in the past that we're willing to sort of back in our assessment of players' traits and get the best out of them at the next level. And yeah, this is sort of just another Giants pick, and I'm pretty happy with it considering, his aerial dominance.
Yeah, very high upside. So this is a kid who has all of the traits you want as a key defender, especially as an intercept marking one. I think he suits, as Declan said, the needs of GWS really well. They miss out or overlook Josh Gibcus at their early pick to get Callaghan, and then they pounce on that key defender. So, I think they'd be pretty happy with that first round haul.
Pick 16, the Brisbane Lions have chosen Darcy WILMOT from the Northern Knights.
Yeah, look, I know he's a favourite of Michael's. He's a player that can run off half back. He's got terrific leadership. He's able to use the ball. He can play further up the field, along a wing or something like that. But he's certainly got that rebounding ability, got the footy smarts. So I think for the Lions, again, I think we had him in the power rankings too at this pick. So a nice selection there. They were very keen on him. They considered trading up at some points, but obviously they couldn't quite end up doing that. So they're going to be very happy to pick up WILMOT there with pick 16. So that's great for the Lions. I think he's a good fit. Guys, what do you think about WILMOT to the Lions?
I agree with you, Pete. It is a good pick. They probably would have had guys like Josh Sin and Campbell Chester in their crosshairs, but they still get a very, very good rebounding defender in Darcy WILMOT. This kid's got all the flair that you want in one of those types of plays, but also heaps of tenacity. So, a great leader on field, very vocal. You can always hear him where he's out there. I think he's going to be a great teammate. And that sort of character's, I think, something that they value really highly at Brisbane Ed.
Yeah, I mean, Fagan would be absolutely stoked to get someone that will be playing there for the team more than anything. I mean, he said himself that he thinks defence first, but it is his attacking nature that is actually really impressive. I mean, I remember one of his first games of the year, I was watching him, he was running along the wing, taking a bounce and kicked this long goal from 50 metres. So he's definitely got the attacking traits, and if he can harness those attacking traits along with the defensive traits, I mean, you're looking at a Tom Stewart AA level of player, and I mean, there's so much to like. I mean, as a late birthday as well, he was so close to being in next year's draft. So, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Pick 17. Richmond have selected Tom Brown for the Murray Bushrangers.
Yeah, so he's obviously running half back. He's very capable of playing further afield, playing that outside role. Brown's actually could have been a Geelong father-son. His dad, Paul, didn't quite play enough games to reach that 100 mark. I think about 84. So, he doesn't quite make it to the Cats under that father-son rule. And we did know he had some interest around this range, and he was sort of going to be at the back end of the first round or early second. So the Tigers have picked him up here and, added to that stocks. They got a tall in Gibcus early, and now they've got Brown sort of to support him in that half-back role. So, guys, I guess around that range sort of seems to suit the Tigers there.
Yeah, obviously Brown's just a super athlete, and I think that's probably the most eye-catching part of his game is his leap and his speed, especially out of defence, and we've seen it up forward as well at times. So that versatility as well is something that Richmond are no doubt going to value, and they probably see him as a bit of a blank canvas and something that they can mould into a real dangerous player and the type that they want.
It'll be interesting to see as well whether he plays off half-back. So, obviously they have lost a bit of value in that defence, a couple of vets. So whether he fits in there or plays on a wing off half-forward, he's very dynamic, very versatile. So plenty to like about Tom Brown, and that athleticism, as both of you have said, really, really makes him a top prospect.
Yeah, they probably see him as a understudy to Nick Floston, for sure. So he's a very similar type with similar traits. So that's definitely where they're looking for in that regard, I reckon.
Pick 18. Sydney have chosen Angus Sheldrick.
Yeah, so the Swans obviously had a number of players they were looking at with this selection. We thought they might have gone, a Josh Goder or someone along those lines. We knew Tyler Sonsie was in there hitting park. There's a few that came off the board. They might have gone toward this pick with Van Ruin perhaps, but they've ended up going here with Angus Sheldrick, obviously. WA had a very, very good season. He can play that sort of inside game really, really well. With some of the, say, Kennedy and whatnot going older, he's able to come straight in. But he adds that midfield depth. They need to get that extra midfield depth in. He's certainly shown a lot in his top age years. So I think that the Swans were hoping to get a midfield here from what I could see from the fans. So they'll probably be pretty happy with this. It might be a little bit of a bolter. So maybe a bit higher than we thought. Maybe thought second round, for example. But good pick. I know, for example, Declan, you're one of his fans. So give us a bit of rundown into his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to talk about inside bull. I don't think there's many better in this draft class. Just a high work rate, and some might argue that it's a bit of a reach just due to a perceived lack of upside. But I think, he's got a lot of development left in him in actually like getting into a gym and getting proper AFL programming. He'll turn into a dangerous player. I think maybe a Jack Graham from Richmond could be a similar type.
Yeah, perhaps. I think he already has a very, very good size about him. I think it's more his endurance, that running capacity. I think he showed he was quite a powerful runner in spurts, so he was able to impact games in important moments and really drive his legs and provide that power going forward. Added goal kicking to his game as well. So that's probably what the Swans would have wanted, that sort of running power for him to use. And I think in the preview I wrote for Sydney, I said that they could expect the unexpected, Ed. So I think they've delivered on that this time around again.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think midfield was always going to be the key for Swans. I mean, if it wasn't a key defender, it was a midfielder. And I mean, in terms of pure midfielders left on the board that add that contested game, there's probably not many better than Sheldrick for that pick.
Pick 19, Melbourne have selected Jacob Van Ruin.
Yeah, so obviously the WA tall swingman can play at either end. We knew that there were a number of teams like your Sydneys, your Brisbanes, Fremantle perhaps if they were going to go a second tall. We're all sniffing around for him, but in the end, obviously Melbourne are able to add that extra younger key position player to add to their key position depth. So very exciting sort of talent. He was touted pretty highly at the start of the year, sort of drifted a bit, and then he's come back in after some good performances for WA. I guess, guys, where do you sort of see him playing in the future? Which end do you sort of see him playing? What role do you sort of see him playing for the D's?
I think, I probably like him more as a forward, and Melbourne will probably play him there, if anything. They do have a pretty good setup down back. They're pretty strong there. The forward line's probably the one area where there might still be a bit of uncertainty going forward. They can have a bit of a shuffle and a play around with who they've got. So he adds probably a point of difference as well. He's really strong and just a bull in there. He's ready-made pretty much. So he'll put some pressure on, guys like Ben Brown and Wiedemann and McDonald as well to play front up. So that's where I see him. You guys tend to agree or no?
I think probably long term he's a bit more of a defender. I like how he reads it from the back line and where he can use that strength even just to sort of bully opponents away a bit more than in the forward line where maybe if, there's a more athletic key defender, it's a bit harder to match up on that.
Pick 20, Brisbane have picked Kai Lowen from the GWV Rebels.
Yeah, so Kai Loman's, a forward who's got some great athleticism. He's got a high upside. We thought he might be in that sort of 25 to 40 range. We knew some clubs liked him in that early to mid second round, but obviously now the Lions have pounced. We know they had a few other players they were keen on who potentially went earlier, like your Chessers and Sins and Van Ruins and things like that. So quite exciting to see them, pluck out a player that's got some high upside as well there. So Loman's someone who, is good around goals. He's able to work up the ground. He's just got a lot of upside. There's still a fair few things he can still improve on and work on. But as a whole, he's got a really good foundation and base to grow. So really exciting to see him get his chance. And we do know how much the Lions love the Rebels. So I guess, Michael, we know in the past how many Rebels have sort of headed up that way. So not too much of a surprise. But what did you make of the pick?
Yeah, not a surprise in terms of the link, but maybe a surprise in terms of his range. Probably 25 we thought was the top of his range, but they pounced. The Lions probably, stocked up on WILMOT on that running halfback that they needed, and then they could just get a dynamic type that they could mould into anything. And Loman sort of suits that really well. He's a player who just brings so much excitement, Ed. I know you rate him really highly. Do you think he sort of plays off half forward and sticks there, or do you think he still has scope to develop in other roles as well?
Yeah, so I actually rated him at 21, so he was very close to my 20, and I'm not too surprised to see him go at around this range, and it is because he is an electric forward. I mean, he's capable of things that not many other players are. He's quick at ground level. He's a high-leaping marker overhead. And he could just make things happen. I mean, I watched one school game that he played with Sam Butler, and he played through the midfield, which we hadn't seen at the Rebels, and he actually looked really clean and really slick through there. So he could long-term be your half-forward type like a Jakey Stringer who can, be dynamic up forward and then go through the midfield and offer a point of difference. So, yeah, he's a very exciting prospect. And along with WILMOT, that's two very good long-term prospects that should hopefully have long careers at the Brisbane Lions.
So that was the first round done and dusted. So we've got a few things we're going to run through in terms of perhaps trends or, what you sort of made of the first round. So I guess I'll throw to the draft room, starting off with who was your sort of biggest surprise from the first round, or who were the surprise picks, do you think, that landed in that first 20?
I think they'd be pretty easy to identify just looking at it on paper. So Lecalier was one that really stood out. I know Declan almost fell off his seat when he saw that. Then you've got obviously Angus Sheldrick after him, Kai Loman, a little bit of a surprise too. So they were the three for me at least. And any others that you sort of thought, maybe I thought he'd go higher or lower or anything like that?
I think the main one going lower is Ben HOBBS. I mean, he's one who's probably been a top 10 prospect all year, and I mean, I've had him at 5, and I know a lot of people have had him in that really high range, and for whatever reason, he slid down a bit, and I'm sure the Bombers are absolutely ecstatic to be sitting at pick 13 pretty much and getting a player of that caliber. I mean, he's one who's going to be a 10-year gun midfielder. So, I mean, you touched on the ones there before, but that would probably be the other one I would be thinking of.
Yeah, I think most people would have had him around 5 as well, which is crazy. I mean, you get a top 5 player down at 13, and you're laughing. So Essendon have done pretty well there. Yeah, not that they needed any of the same type, but yeah, certainly have.
Thanks for that, guys. Who were you surprised that went in that top 20, and who do you reckon will go early next round?
Might have to have that question from Grace again because I couldn't quite hear it over here.
Who are you surprised that didn't go in that top 20, and who do you reckon will go in the next round?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few left on the board we're really surprised on, I think. I know Goda's one you rate highly, Ed.
Yeah, Josh Goda is probably one who would have definitely had a few links in that range, but obviously some clubs have preferred a bit better. I mean, a few things that he needs to work on would probably be that work rate and that running capacity and tackling as a midfielder. And another one in Tyler Sonzi, who is a top 10 caliber player, and he's going really late. And whichever club picks him up later, I'd hazard to guess we'll be getting a real steal by the end of it.
And a couple, Declan, who could have been probably in that first round and pushing it, Sam Butler. And then Blake Howes as well was probably a late call.
Yeah, absolutely. And, both those players are sort of rumoured, especially late, to come into consideration around that GWS pick where Aaliyah did end up going. And I think that was probably the consensus coming in, that was going to be the pick where, I guess, the chaos, if you would, started a bit. I'd also say Matthew Johnson not going top 20 is a big surprise as well.
What do you guys think of the live trades?
Ed, it's probably your domain, the live trades. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was obvious that Port were going to try and get ahead of Essendon, who were pretty keen on Sin. So, I mean, that was pretty much an expected one that we thought if it was going to happen, that one would happen. But, I mean, there wasn't really as much live trades as I thought there would be. I would have thought it was going to be really hammer and tong in that middle range. And obviously, West Coast having to trade down, they knew the player they wanted and they knew that they'd be available there. So, I mean, it just worked for them.
Yeah, and do you think there's more to come? I think because this range is so even now, would you say that it's going to be quite busy on the trade table?
I think within the first 10 picks, certainly, I would hazard a guess around 3 to 4, I would say, in that early range. I mean, especially that first pick. I'd be surprised if Fremantle are taking that pick to the draft.
Yes, so that just about wraps up our coverage from night 1 of the AFL Draft. Thanks to Rookie Me Central. Thanks very much to the draft gurus in there. And, of course, they'll be back again tomorrow night to wrap up part 2 of the night. Thanks, Grace, for hosting tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And, obviously, we'll be back again tomorrow night. Make sure you're checking out Rookie Me Central on the website Rookie Me Central through the AFL YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We're going to have a lot of content coming up and plenty more in store. So be following us. Check out the videos. There's going to be some interviews on YouTube. Plenty of content going around. Of course, all the draft profiles. Make sure you download the draft guide as well. And to check out all the players that have been drafted today and that will get drafted tomorrow. So thanks very much for having us. And we'll be back again tomorrow night live from 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in.